Most people are kind of resistant to this conversation because of the reputation it had in the past.
24-hour care, you're looking at about, you say $30,000 a month. That's not a year, that's about a month.
When you're in a crisis mode, you are, most of the time, they only give you a couple of options.
Your options go away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Maybe they had a fall or a stroke, or maybe they forgot they were in a store and they forgot where they were at, so they end up going to the ER and getting hospitalized.
Hello everybody, welcome to Let's Talk Senior Living. I'm Jewell Buenavista, and today our topic is about understanding home care. What exactly is home care? How do I hire a caregiver? And here with us today is Hitomi Gonzales, who will be able to help us understand exactly what is home care. I mean, I hear it around, I need to hire a caregiver. Can you kind of break it down for us?
Absolutely. So a lot of people get confused with home care because when they're usually hearing this, it's at a time of crisis. So let me break it down to you. Home care is care provided in a home setting that is usually non-medical. People confuse it with home health, but in home care, they provide non-medical care. So that includes personal care, if someone needs assistance with dressing, changing, going to the toilet, safety transfers, along with meal preparations. So if you think about that, those are all non-medical. No one is really bandaging up a wound or trying to prescribe a medication to you. It's usually, someone there to help you, remind you to take your medication. Other things could be companionship or simply just preparing meals and running errands for you, taking you to doctor's appointments. So with home care, it's there to help seniors still keep their independence and enjoy their home where they're at, although it could be provided wherever they live and where they call home.
Because it's like a high percentage of people that actually want age in place, right?
Yes.
So hiring a home care person helps that individual stay at home longer.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Help me understand, do I hire a caregiver 24 hours or how does that work? Can I just need them for 2 hours?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a common question I get asked, and it's a wide range of options. And I think this is great that we're doing this because a lot of people don't know they have options. And so when you say 2 hours, 3 hours, a lot of companies will probably have a minimum of 4 hours, but there are other companies out there that could be flexible and work with a wide range of options. So you can get a caregiver for 1 hour, 2 hours per day to start. And then you can also go into 24 hours, 7 days a week. But it really depends on what kind of care they need. Typically for someone who is in a state of just wanting some assistance with, maybe checking in on mom to see if they're okay, if they have all they need in the home. Maybe they recently had a fall and no one lives with them but themselves, so they want someone to pop in and check in. There's options for that as well.
I see. So, and at what point does somebody realize, what, I should call somebody to help me? Because a lot of times people don't realize, when do I start realizing I need to call a home care agency to help me out? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so the common scenario, I would say, is when they're in the hospital and they're in a crisis mode. What happens is maybe they had a fall or a stroke, or maybe they forgot they were in a store and they forgot where they were at, so they end up going to the ER and getting hospitalized. So from there, you'll probably, or the family will probably talk with a case manager or social worker where they bring up, in order for him or her to go home safely, we would like you to explore options for caregiving. So that's another word for home care, is you might hear them say caregiving or private caregiving. And so in those kinds of cases, that's when they're really hearing what the caregiving is. But usually they pair it up with home health, where this becomes a little confusing. And oftentimes I would get calls from families thinking that they're calling a home health company that is covered through insurance. So would you like me to
Yes,
kind of...
please.
Okay, so with home health, when someone says home health, it's the medical piece to the puzzle. So they're providing physical therapy, occupational therapy, social work, and a nurse visit. And so that is covered through insurance. Now that could be Medicare or any other HMO. It will really depend on what insurance can take you. The other option is home care. So that's who we are again. We're the private caregiving that's non-medical. And we are primarily private pay. So when people are calling me, I'm having to educate them on the difference between home health and home care. Chances are they need both at the same time. So there's so many different scenarios where you could use caregiving at home. It could be like that one with the hospital setting, getting discharged home. It could also be from hospital to skilled nursing facility. They're gonna be going home with caregiving because maybe they haven't been home for months and they don't know the state that their home looks like right now. There might be some light housekeeping that needs to be done or laundry that needs to be done because they need to strengthen themselves, and if they do too much all at once, they might fall or have another hospitalization. So caregiving can come into place for that. There's other scenarios where it's more of a planning, getting aware. In this case, your audience who's watching this is probably going to start planning for their loved ones or for themselves. And so in the process of planning, they're exploring what exactly is caregiving. And then from there, what are some tasks that mom, dad, or myself need help with? So common one would be if they lose their driver's license and they don't have a means to get to their doctor's appointments. And I hear that often with doctors is, my patient could not get to me today because they didn't have a driver, they didn't have transportation, or if the insurance is covering for the transportation, they pretty much leave them there but don't pick them up because there's not an effective communication that took place where they know to stay there for an hour plus. So those are some considerations when looking into caregiving.
So caregivers can actually drive me to my appointment?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
What else can caregivers do? Help me understand, what are common things that caregivers do?
The way I explain this to families is what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, you can do independently, but if you need help with some of those things like brushing your teeth, doing light housekeeping, cooking, maybe microwaving even, or planning a meal for the week. Some people may lose the cognitive capabilities to be able to plan for their meals throughout the week. Like I said earlier, medication reminders. I already forget to take my medications. So, having someone remind them to take medications. Doing personal care, salon things, brushing their hair, combing their hair, helping them in the bathroom. A lot of everything that you and I could normally do, but say in a situation where we're put in a place where we can't put our socks on, that's what a caregiver could do for you.
Yeah, because like my mom, she's living with Parkinson's, and right now, fortunately, she's still able to do a lot of these things. But I'm noticing there are certain things that she can't do on her own, like she can't walk.
Right.
Too far of a distance, like she has to hold on to somebody. So although she's independent in other things, there are things that she can't do. She's starting to not be able to do. So this is where a caregiver would actually come in. A lot of people hear these, I need a caregiver, right? When do I hire a home care agency? Can I just hire my neighbor or my aunt or my nephew to provide the caregiving? I mean,
the true answer to that is yes, and it depends, right? Because everyone has different care goals. If you're someone who has family support and family is willing to help out, yes, go ahead, hire family members because they know how you are, you can trust them, and you can tell them however you want to, whenever you want to, and they are your family at the end of the day. So yes to family. Neighbors, I see so many of these as well. I mean, it's good to have neighbors that will take care of you and look out for you. There's nothing wrong with that. So having neighbors that you've built relationship with over the years and built some sort, it goes back to trust, right? So work with someone you can trust. So yes, you can hire a neighbor if you would like to. You can hire a neighbor's friend if you would like to. However, there are unfortunate situations where people do take advantage of seniors. And so keeping an eye on that one and making sure that if you are with someone you don't trust, or maybe the senior trusts this person, but as a daughter or as a family member, you recognize that there are some suspicious activities, definitely advocate for your loved one. And this is where home care companies come into play. Home care companies, they have licensed, vetted, bonded, and insured caregivers. And so when I say licensed, they pretty much have followed, license means they've followed the regulations and met the regulations to hire and explore and vetted the background of the caregivers. Then bonded also provides that financial security if the employee does end up providing or committing theft, and those things happen, unfortunately. Then you're going to be compensated and find a resolution to help that.
So are you telling me if I hired my neighbor that I could potentially be liable, God forbid something was to go wrong?
Yes.
What do you mean?
You could be liable for having a neighbor or even a family member because there's no insurance. You can work with them through that, but if there's no insurance, then you're going to be liable for that.
I think it's so important that our viewers understand that. You know, it's a lot of times it's like, oh, I'll hire my family or my neighbor, not realizing that now they become the employer and they are at risk. God forbid something happens to that individual in their home.
Right.
Okay. So I think that's a key, that's something that it's important for our viewers to really understand the differences of hiring somebody from a home care agency versus hiring privately.
Correct.
Okay. So there's pros and cons to each one.
Yes.
Can you help me understand, like, how much does it cost to hire a caregiver?
All I know is when I started in home care in 2023, was it 2023? Is that it's increased, right? So you owned your own home care company at some point.
Yes.
In this day and age, you're looking at an average of 35 to 45 to 50. And
dollars an hour.
Dollars an hour, correct.
What is that equivalent to in a day or in a month?
Oh, gonna have me do the math now. Let me tell you, 24/7 care can go all the way up to $30,000 per month.
Wow.
Yeah.
I need for us to really help our viewers understand that. If we ever require 24-hour care, if we want to age in place in our home, and home care is a great option, we have to understand the cost of it.
Exactly.
And if we understand the cost of it, how can we prepare for it? Right? So 24-hour care, you're looking at about, you say $30,000 a month. That's not a year, that's about a month. How does somebody afford that much to pay for caregiving services? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, how can we, there's ways to pay for it. So what are those options?
I call this the alternative funding solutions, where you can stack as much as you can. And this is what I'm working through with my grandmother right now.
Okay.
And so, yes, caregiving is primarily private pay, and 24 hours, 7 days a week can get very costly, but there's other ways to pay for it. If someone has a long-term care insurance policy, that could help pay for caregiving services. If they're a veteran, they could have aid and attendance benefits or the VA homemaker service.
How much can you get?
Great question.
It's like $2,000, almost $3,000 or something, right?
It may not be a whole lot, but it's still something.
Yes.
Now, there's also what we call Medicaid. And I'm saying Medicaid because this will be televised nationally. So in California, we have Medi-Cal, and CalAIM, through a partnership with specific insurance, can pay for caregiving services now, which is honestly such a blessing.
Really? Tell me about that, because there's like millions of people on Medi-Cal, Medicaid. Like,
absolutely.
Because I would love for our viewers to know about that.
Yeah, so in 2025, when we're filming today, CalAIM, at least in California, San Diego, you're looking at community health groups, CHG is what they would call it, Molina, Kaiser, and Blue Shield Promise will pay for caregiving services.
Really?
Yes.
That's new.
Yeah.
Do you know how much they'll cover?
So there's two programs you could be a part of. One program is the respite program. So the respite will give you about 336 hours of free caregiving every year to support a loved one who's, taking care of them. So 336 hours is a lot of hours for someone who
I'm trying to break that up into like, what is that a month? So
yeah.
You get that free.
For free every year, as long as you have the insurance.
And what insurance is that? If you're on Medi-Cal?
CHG, Molina, Kaiser, and Blue Shield Promise.
Okay, that's good to know, because my mom is Kaiser.
Oh.
So I'm going to have to
there
look
you
into
go.
that.
Yeah.
So they can get up to 336 hours free caregiving.
Correct, yes. And on top of that, there's a program called Personal Care. And with the personal care, they can get up to, and it could change anytime because they tend to change the claims over time, but about 120, 160 hours for 30 days. So the personal care program through the CalAIM option gives families the ability, or the patient themselves and clients, the ability to wait and find the right caregiving or find the right caregiver in place through IHSS. So the personal care requires you to have an IHSS, which is in-home support services, pending status or reassessment for more hours. And then on top of that, you can get the personal care through CalAIM. So a lot of the times, and you've experienced this before, when someone applies for IHSS or in-home support services, and then they hire a caregiver, it takes a while for that caregiver to onboard, to start, or to even find an IHSS caregiver. So the personal care is there to fill in the gap. So ultimately, you're only using it for 30 to 60 days until you find the right in-home support services caregiver.
So again, this is if you are
Medi-Cal.
You have Medi-Cal. How about, are there programs like that for if you're outside of California, do you know?
You know, my previous director worked in New York, and he said caregiving was paid for through Medicaid.
Okay, so it's something that like our viewers can search for if they have Medicaid or Medi-Cal, that there are programs where caregiving could be covered, or at least a portion of it can be covered. Okay, so let's go back to this stacking up. So what other things that you...
So since we're in the conversation of Medi-Cal, I want to do a shout out to PACE, which is a program for all-inclusive care for the elderly. And so in San Diego alone, there's San Diego PACE, Gary and Mary West PACE, St. Paul's PACE, and I would encourage people to look into that because it's like an all-inclusive resort for the elderly, I would say, but it's not a resort. So they go in there, they get their meals. It's more like an adult care center, adult day care center, and they can see their physical therapists and doctors. Dental appointments could be done there, all in one place, along with transportation. But the PACE program can also provide caregiving resources as well.
So can you combine?
So in this case with Medi-Cal, PACE is completely, if you choose PACE, then you have to use PACE. If you choose Medi-Cal through CalAIM, then you have to use CalAIM.
Got it. So it's similar things, but just under different
umbrellas, and also different in a way depending on what your goals of care are. So people who are going to PACE are still quite independent.
But just knowing that there's free caregiving services out there, I think for a lot of families, that is just music to the ears, because they don't even know that, you know, that there's even these options available.
Yeah.
And that they're free, because earlier you mentioned it costs $30 to $50 an hour, which a lot of people unfortunately don't have.
Right.
And so looking at these options is great. So thank you for sharing that. Are there other ways to pay for caregiving?
Yes, another way to pay for caregiving, and most people are kind of resistant to this conversation because of the reputation it had in the past. But if you meet with an expert on home equity conversion mortgage, they call it HECM, which is reverse mortgage, that could also be utilized to pay for caregiving.
And how is that?
So they could, if you own a home, research in your area or find someone that you could trust to talk about reverse mortgage, and see if you can pull some funds from your home to pay for caregiving.
Got it. So reverse mortgage option.
Mortgage, correct.
Okay. Other ways.
Another ways. I mentioned earlier family, friends, neighbors. Yes, don't be afraid to use them if you trust them, but just be aware that there is a liability hiring your own family members. So when I alluded to the alternative funding solutions and stacking options, I'm saying if you have long-term care insurance, or if your dad is a veteran at the same time, don't be afraid to use the LTC insurance, the vet aid and attendance, along with family members and neighbors that could support, or church members that could support you. So those are some of the ways to pay for home care.
Okay. Wow. And I'm hoping our viewers are learning from this.
You can always rewind and repeat.
Yes. No, because a lot of times families are just, I don't even know where to start.
Absolutely.
You know, this is so overwhelming, or they don't realize there's options out there, or a lot of people, they don't have the funds to pay for it, right? But there's so many families that are retired veterans, right? They're veterans.
Exactly.
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know about the veteran programs that's benefits. Does CalAIM or through PACE, which I'm actually going to talk to PACE later.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So there's all of these options available, but the goal is for people to actually go and look for them. Yes. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create awareness of these programs to help our families out. Let me ask you, Hitomi, I mean, what are some common mistakes or challenges, and how can families prepare for these challenges?
First of all, I'd say listen to Let's Talk Senior Living.
Yes.
Start here. You're off to a great start. And a lot of the times, like I said earlier, they are hearing the words home care, caregiving when they're at the hospital, when they're in a crisis mode.
Yes.
And so if it's a family member or daughter or spouse that's listening to this right now, and you've recognized some decline with your loved one, start having the conversation with your doctor sooner.
Now, yes.
Now. Explore your options. Explore your options with not just the providers you're working with, but also with your financial planner, fiduciary if you have that, estate planning attorney, because
it's like you start building your team. You start building your village.
Exactly.
Yes.
Start building your village. And I always say, closed mouths don't get fed. And if you open your mouth and share your story, people will open up about their caregiving journey. You never know that maybe the neighbor or that church member that you often speak with had probably gone through something similar to yours, and sharing your story will help them open up about theirs. And so there's a beauty with us having a community of people that could be of support. So with that being said, there's also support groups out there as well. But yes, a lot of times people are in crisis mode. So start early, start planning now. When you're in a crisis mode, you are, most of the time, they only give you a couple of options.
Your options go away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. When you don't have enough time to research, they're probably wanting to discharge the person the following day. And so you only have less than a day to figure out who you're going to work with. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is they choose a company, they go home, the caregiver doesn't show up, and they're left with this crisis again. And it's a whirlwind of emotions that could affect other family members. And then they start taking it out on each other. And so you really want to do your best to prepare sooner rather than later.
So what I'm hearing you say, Hitomi, is that if I want to age in place in my own home, although I may not need it now, that it's a good idea for me to start looking into caregiving options. When I eventually will require care, mm-hmm. What are my options? Who are the organizations? Do I want to hire my family? Do I have the financial means? How much will it cost? Do I need to put that in order, mm-hmm. and do it proactively rather than waiting till, because sometimes families think like, oh, my kids are going to take care of me. Mm-hmm. And it's not that our kids don't want to take care of us. It's maybe they can't, right? And so start having those conversations with your family. And are there any other tips or anything you want to share in regards to?
I met a family recently where it was the whole family in the room, and I was there along with my nurse, who will do typically a consultation to understand what care needs they will need when they get home. And at the end of the conversation, the husband said, I have my kids to help with that, so I don't really need the care anymore because my kids will be here. And one of the daughters spoke up and said, but Dad, I have to come home to my spouse. And he jokingly said, look, you only have one mother. You can always find a new husband.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a joke in that moment, but the reality is the children have lives as well.
Yes,
that they
and
have to
children, they have their own children to tend to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes I'd say one of the mistakes is, like you said earlier, is that the parents assume that the kids can take on the burden of taking care of them. And to the children, maybe they didn't agree to this, or they were guilted, to take care of their loved ones. And in turn, this affects their own family interaction and relationships. And so doing your whole family a service with, why don't we explore options out there and do some research on our local home care providers? Go on Google, go on Yelp, research some. If you have neighbors, friends, or close ones that have shared with you in the past that they've worked with another agency, start the interview sooner, because what you'll find is once you meet with one, you have a general idea of what you can be looking for. And during those times when you're having this consultation with a provider, you're also expressing what you need or what is best for you. So if budget is a concern, there's options for that. And don't feel bad if the other company doesn't work out, because ultimately there's a solution out there for you. That's what business is for, is to provide solution. Mm-hmm. So if budget is an issue, there's going to be a resource out there. If continuity is something you're looking for, you don't want multiple different people coming in, there's someone who's going to do that better. If attendance is something that you're looking for, you want to make sure the caregiver shows up because, say, the spouse or the adult children will need to go to work and show up to work on time, and that's important for them, there's options for them on that one too. So start the interview sooner.
I like how you said, and I think it's important for our families to realize that just because your child or your loved one, that they don't, it's not that they don't want to help. Sometimes they really can't.
Right.
Because they have to work, they have to provide for their own families. So that's why the conversation needs to happen now, right? There shouldn't be any resentment. There needs to be that open communication to understand, and how can we proactively plan? And like what you mentioned, maybe I could only help with the weekends or something, but who's going to take care of the other days? So let's plan for that.
Exactly.
Is there anything else? Again, thank you so much for bringing light to this. A lot of people don't realize. Don't wait till you're in crisis mode, because once you're in crisis mode, your options go down.
Yeah.
Right? So go out there, start doing research. Are there other things that you feel that our families should be aware of or to avoid?
To avoid, so I think families should be aware that they need to take care of themselves too. In the process of being a caregiver, in the process of hiring a caregiver, right? You were the caregiver first. So what are some things that you struggled with as a caregiver? And so some families, maybe the loved one that needs the care tends to have a behavior or is stubborn, and that's a common thing. So bring that up to the company that you're trying to interview, because the more transparent and open the communication is, the better your chances are with finding the right fit for you. And like I said earlier, if budget is the issue, you don't have to force yourself with that company, because I guarantee there's some resource out there. Another resource I forgot to mention was the Southern Caregiver Resource Center here in San Diego. It's called STRC. It's a nonprofit organization that can help families get some caregiver as well. So there are tons of options out there.
That's just here in San Diego, but I'm sure anywhere in the nation there are organizations that provide something similar.
Exactly.
You just have to go out and look for them. But knowing that they exist is half the battle, right? So go out there and look for it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for giving us information, understanding what home care is. You've shared how you're helping your grandma put all of this plan together.
Yeah.
If you were to, and I ask this to all our guests, is there a senior living hack that you can share, or a tip or something that, that's a good one for me to know, that you could share with our viewers?
There's a lot of hacks out there, depending on who I'm having a conversation with, but really going back to taking care of yourself is the big important hack, because caregivers do experience burnout, and one of the ways to combat that is to look for some help with respite. And so maybe the loved one is adamant they do not want to hire anybody. However, you yourself as a caregiver may be going through just days where you feel like I need a break. Do not silence that voice, and please seek out respite. Even if it's just one day where you get to go out, go to the salon, get your hair done, walk on the beach, you will be able to show up with your partner, your loved one, authentically and be there with them and have quality time.
That's such a great reminder. So it's respite care?
Respite care.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's like me hiring somebody maybe 1 day.
1 day, 2 days for 4-8 hours, just so you can take care of yourself. I think that's very important.
Or even like a 2-week vacation or something.
That one too. Exactly. There's options out there. And I know you may hear some companies that say we have a minimum of 4 hours, 6-hour commitment, or we cannot do it unless there's a continuous amount of commitment for a month plus. Look for another company, because I guarantee you there will be a company out there that will provide 1 to 2 weeks of care.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Again, thank you for all our viewers out there. If you are on this journey where you're taking care of a loved one, I understand how overwhelming it is because I'm a caregiver myself. I care manage for my mother, and hopefully today you learned that there are options. Look into caregiving services out there. There are ways to pay for it. As Hitomi mentioned, there's VA benefits, there's state programs. There are options out there. So go out there and be proactive. Do not wait till you're in crisis mode and start creating that village to take care of you and your family. So again, thank you so much for being with us. And as a reminder, as Ephesians 6:2 reminds us, honor your father and mother. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.